Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and we were back for a new episode. Again, we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Monica Mojica. She is the owner-operator of Mobu Creative, and she is also a theater professor. So we're pretty awesomely proud to have you here. Are you excited?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I'm awesomely proud to be here.
Very good. So welcome, Monica. So we always start off the show by talking a little bit about who you are, where you came from. I know that you're a professor at MSU teaching theater, and I want to know, are you a local of Las Cruces?
You know, Miguel, I am not. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and
Okay.
I moved here about 20 years ago after I met my husband, and I went to NMSU.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you remember the El Paso Times?
Yes, I do.
The El Paso Times, yes. I put an ad in the personals, and about 30 people answered that ad. And out of the 30, I called one person back, and that was my husband. So I totally lied. I said that I had blue eyes. Like, how can I fake that, right? But it was the 90s, and I don't know if you remember like those contacts that everyone used to wear, and I kind of looked like a robot. Like the contacts would kind of switch back and forth, like I was staring into your soul. That's how I met my husband. And I remember everywhere I went, I had to like put the contacts on. But yeah, so we met, we wooed, we wed, and then I came to Las Cruces.
Oh, very cool. So you ended up in Las Cruces doing a bunch of other stuff. But let's talk and give us a little bit of insight on how you grew up. I want to understand you a little bit better. The audience wants to understand, you know, who were your influences? What did you do when you were younger? What kinds of schools did you attend?
I went to the School of Hard Knocks. No, I didn't. I went to St. Joseph's and Loretto. I went to private Catholic schools. Gosh, growing up, we were super creative. We were always super creative. And I think it's because we didn't have a lot of money. So I just remember like playing in the dirt. I remember making up stories. And I feel that really foundationally propelled me to where I am today and my life today. My dad is just, he's crazy. Like, he's hilarious. He would dress up in these costumes, and I thought, my 16-year-old self thought it was to like embarrass me, but he just did it to be hilarious. I remember him dressing up like a pig, like he had a pig nose, and then he had a short shirt with his panza hanging out and shorts. And I was like, Dad, it was for Halloween. And I was like, Dad, why are you dressed like that? And I was like, Dad, embarrassed, you know? But he's just like, he has such a sense of humor. He's always pushing the envelope. He's always pushing for a joke. And that really foundationally gave me that kind of bananas aesthetic that I search for in my own work. My mom was my teacher. So I want you, Miguel, to go back to 8th grade in your mind and remember where you were in 8th grade, right? Now in 8th grade, actually it was like 8th, 7th, and 6th, my mom was my middle school teacher. So it was.
You're saying literally?
Like literally, she was literally my teacher.
Oh, wow.
So that was super interesting. She also she taught me, she used to read all these like Rudyard Kipling books, and she would be very animated in doing that. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty animated. And I think I've inherited.
As am I, and I love it. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I've inherited that from my mom. Like, she would read stuff and she'd make them come alive. It was interesting having her as a teacher. She's probably one of the best teachers I've ever had in terms of just the motherhood aspect, and also just like getting organized with your stuff. So you add the zaniness of my dad and the creative storytelling with my mom, and you get me.
Well, I love it. We've had several conversations about a whole bunch of different things. Tell us how this kind of influence helped you become who you are as an individual. What has it allowed you to do in life?
it allowed me to look at a prescriptive trajectory, like let's just say academic advising. Take these classes, check these boxes, go from point A to point B. It allowed me, the way I grew up, and I think El Paso sort of cultivates this, is to look beyond that simple line. So it was weird because I grew up in a situation where there were a lot of rules, Catholic school, but because there were so many rules, I kind of looked beyond them. I wasn't like, yeah, this rule breaker, but I kind of was like, okay, like we couldn't talk in the cafeteria in my school. I remember that when I was going to elementary school. So we all learned sign language and we're fluent in sign language. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And I to this day, I still know sign language. And it's sometimes like we didn't have money growing up. So I learned how to fill my life with my own riches. I learned how to see beyond the rules or take those rules and sort of skew them so they could benefit my true intrinsic self. And little did I know that that very theory would be what I teach to my students and to corporate clients and to police officers, which I know we're going to talk about later. But I love that you asked that question, Miguel, because that's so intrinsic to who we become, is where we started from. And it's really kind of a joy to even revisit that in my own head.
Yeah, I think that it's very important because we all have our influences, whether it be our parents or people from outside of our lives, and they absolutely help us become who we become. So you eventually graduated high school, then you moved on to study higher ed. What did you study? Were you always into theater? Or I know that you're very animated, but was that something that you were always into?
I went to Cathedral. No, I didn't. I went to Loretto. I'm not a man. I totally went to Loretto.
I'm glad you clarified that for the audience.
Let me just clarify. This is all lady. So anyways, I was at Loretto and there was an audition for a cathedral play. And there was a man who changed the course of my life. Mr. G was his name.
Ooh,
and
how?
I was in my first play and I totally dug it. I loved it. I felt lit up inside. So that was my first like maximum wattage. And I thought like, I love this feeling. I love working that doesn't feel like work. So what could I do? So I went to UTEP and I studied theater there first. And I loved it. And I remember I had well-intentioned relatives tell me, you're making a big mistake. There's no way you can make money in the arts.
Okay.
So as we talked about earlier, just tell me I can't do something. I learned sign language because you said I couldn't talk. You know what I mean? So it's like that whole, I was like, yeah, I'll be good. I can do it. So unfortunately, I followed a boy and I dropped out of college. So I took the scenic route to adulthood. But I love sharing that because when my students come to me with worries about their path, I'm like, hey, don't worry. Look at me. I actually graduated from college at 32. After I met my husband, after I got married, but I had to go on all those adventures to discover who I am today, make me the artist, performing artist, writer that I am today. So I'm very grateful to it. So I did that, met my husband, showed him my brown eyes, got married. And then, I was like, oh, I better finish this college thing. And I felt so old and I felt so unworthy. And I felt like I had made so many mistakes. So I had to sort of get rid of that baggage and remember who I used to be.
And through that creativity, now that you're teaching students at NMSU theater, what do you guys focus on? Is it more like sending or the communication skills that you're helping them achieve, or is it life skills that you're helping them achieve? Or maybe a mix of both?
That is such a great question. That is such a great question. Okay, so first of all, let me say that I teach at DACC right now. I
Uh-huh.
occasionally teach at NMSU, but my steady
Okay.
gig has been Doña Ana Community College.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and you know what? I think theater is life skills. I really, truly do. I think in this day and age, we are so hooked up to our computers, and I realize that, normally we'd be talking in person. We're hooked up to our phones, right? That we're
Absolutely.
missing life. And a lot of times I will have students who can't be, like, they can't be in a room, they can't be present. They'll
Mhm.
be thinking of the future or even lamenting the past, which is what I used to do. So I
Right.
think when you take theater, when you take an acting class, or even the way I teach history of theater,
Hmm.
um, I encourage you to be. I encourage you to just own the moment, be in the moment, recognize that this is all part of a huge gift. And 9 times out of 10, the students that graduate from my class will contact me and say, hey, I got this job as a lawyer, or hey, I got this job. I have students working for Warner Brothers. They do all sorts
Nice.
of wonderful things because they learn to be in the moment and trust that what's unfolding is the very best possible way for them right now.
That's very, very true. I'm part of that same philosophy. I'm very much a realist in many ways that I think about things. So, from doing what you do through school and education, higher ed, you then started Mobu. Um, what exactly is Mobu? I love the name, but what does it
Oh,
mean?
okay, so my name is Monica Mojica. I never took my husband's last name. My husband's last name is Bugby, and it just
Okay.
didn't flow with me. So, and again, I guess it's a rule breaker. Like, I want to keep my own name. So kept, I took the first 2 letters in my name, Mo, and
Hmm.
the first 2 letters, I'm sorry, in his name, Bugby, Boo. So it's Mobu
Okay.
Creative. And I do all kinds of things. I train officers of the law how to de
Hmm.
escalate the mentally ill using verbal protocol instead of command and control when
Hmm.
necessary. My goal, Miguel, is that
Hmm.
everyone comes home safely at night. So I figure the best way to do that is to marry my passion of acting and theater with
Hmm.
my passion for advocacy for the mentally ill. So if a mentally ill person is in crisis and an officer arrives at the scene, I want to offer them an alternative to talk things out. And the best way that I found that they can do this, kind of the gold standard of training, is
Right.
reality based scenario training. So I have an elite cadre of professional actors who act
Hmm.
as persons in crisis, and then the officers will utilize what they've learned in a 40-hour practicum to practice these
Uh-huh.
skills in real time. So it has been sort of a calling in my life, and I've
Hmm.
worked with police officers, hostage negotiators, SWAT team. I've worked with the fire department. I work with police cadets, and it's
Right.
the most eye-opening and rewarding thing that I've ever done. And sometimes I think to myself, like in how you structure this interview, how did I get here? Like, how this
Right.
hippie girl who teaches, how am I talking to these big burly SWAT team guys? But
Right.
it's because I followed my passion. And it's
Hmm.
because I listened to that voice who's saying, you know what? Instead of complaining, on Facebook or on social media, what can you do? What can you do, Monica Mojica, to help the situation. And so I started my company, and it's been going very well.
That's awesome to hear. One of the things that you mentioned was kind of the communication skills that you are giving these individuals who have their badges. What led you to focus on that? I know that there's a huge need because we keep seeing all of these tragedies happen on television. Was it a specific event that transpired at some point in your life that led you to say, hey, there is a need, I think I can fill this gap?
Yeah, my dad went to the Vietnam War, and he
Mm-hmm.
suffers from PTSD. And
Oh, okay.
my fear was that, so if someone is in crisis and if someone has a mental illness,
Right.
it's a medical encounter. Like if you had diabetes or if I had a heart problem, it's something.
Right.
There's neurotransmitters that aren't firing. So it's important to recognize that because it manifests as personality. So
Oh. Mm-hmm.
what started me thinking was like, what if my dad was in crisis and somebody untrained would think that he's under the influence of something? That made me that started that spark. Then I met a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful man who unfortunately passed away, named
Yes.
Ron Gurley, and
Mm-hmm.
he was such an advocate for the mentally ill here in Las Cruces. And I met him by working in a film where I played like a wife, and my husband was going crazy, and I had to de-escalate him and call the police. It was like a training film.
Right.
We just started talking, and this is what I would encourage your viewers also to remember. There's some magical spark. There's some magical thing that happens. It could be in your heart, in your gut. It's
Mm-hmm.
rarely in your head, but you feel kismet. You
Right.
feel like this is the right path. This is exactly who I'm supposed to meet. So here I am worrying about my dad, and then I meet this man, and he has been such a huge mentor to me in cultivating my business because I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't
Right.
know how to do it. And I often tell my students this: don't worry about the how. Get get clear on what it is you want, and the
Mm-hmm.
how will come. The how will come. It always does. And so he was my how.
And through this individual, your how, as far as creatively speaking, because that's the name of our show is Creative Thinkers, do you think that there's a connection there? Was he like a catalyst for you, specifically focusing on creativity in order for you to do what you have done now with Mobu?
Yes, Ron Gurley was absolutely a catalyst. And I didn't believe in myself, really. I didn't believe in charging money I was like, oh, I'll just do it for free. I kind of devalued my own skill set. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
we have people in our lives that say, hey, you're worth it. Remember your
Mhm.
value. You don't serve anything by playing small. So he was definitely one of those people. And as I went along, you know, becoming a professor and doing different things, it's like, when you start to say the small yeses, the bigger ones come. So
Absolutely.
he was the first step, and then I started meeting more and more people who believed in the same thing, and reality-based scenario training as being the gold standard. And
Hmm.
I started getting more and more yeses. And then the most important yes, of course, comes from you, right? Comes from you believing in yourself
Right.
and believing in your gifts. And then I met another man whose name is Michael Kelly, and he is at the El Paso Health. Oh my gosh, I cannot. It just completely escaped me right now, and he's going to absolutely kill me. But he was just another sort of catalyst and another how. And he said, "Hey, why don't you create a creative workshop for for corporate CEOs?" And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "No, I can't. Me? I just was like, I can't do that. Like, who'd want to talk to me? Those little voices, right, coming in.
Right. Uh-huh.
Who'd listen to me? I'm just like Monica. And Michael also really helped me say, no, 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 focus, listen. And then I did this wonderful workshop that was taking all of the stuff I knew foundationally as a theater teacher and as a
Uh-huh.
creative thinker, as a
Right.
person who wants to cultivate the blossom of creativity. And I did it
Yes.
in front of all of these CEOs. And these were like top-notch people, captains of industry. And darn it, if it wasn't the most moving, beautiful, wonderful experiences, another yes. And I'm still friends with the people who are in my very first workshop. And that set me on another path that was like, I can offer this kind of beautiful communication and beautiful team building skills that I've already learned through acting, through theater, through training big giant police officers. I can give this back to other people and we can grow together. We can heal together. Of course, then COVID hit.
Yeah.
But that has helped me again sort of listen to my heart, listen to my
Mm-hmm.
gut, listen to myself. And so I've learned to do other things. As a matter of fact, I just wrote a movie and we're filming the trailer
Wow.
tomorrow. No, on Thursday.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
So
now this is in the future. Tell us what's happening then. I got to hear this.
okay. So I'm just super excited about it because it's called Who to Save. And it's about two educators who are, it's about a student, really, a 9-year-old who escaped Colombia under duress. And
Right.
it focuses on her, but it takes place, it's just a short, and it takes place in between these two educators. The little girl who escaped Colombia came to the United States illegally, and
Mm-hmm.
she bit her teacher. And so the school administrator is coming and he's like, we've got to follow protocol. She's bit. We need to get the parents in here. And her teacher, her gifted facilitator is like, no, we can't, because if we expose Sophia, we expose her entire family. So it's kind of
Oh.
a
Uh-huh.
philosophical battle between the two of them, and it
Mm-hmm.
gets to be pretty political. Um, the administrator is advocating for protocol. The gifted facilitator is advocating for the child, and both are doing this in the name of advocacy for this little girl. So it's no easy answers. It
Right.
definitely turns the lens into the divisiveness that is plaguing and shadowing everything we do in America. So yeah, and I would have never even thought of being in a movie or writing a movie or directing it unless COVID happened. So it's like listening to that howl, listening to that voice, and then I just met the most fantastic group of people ever, and wonderful actors and cinematographers, sound guys. We all just came together and formed a collective. Actually, it's called
Nice.
Indie Genius.
Oh, wow. That's a really cool name. Well,
Indigenous.
see, that's what's really cool about what you're doing is that I feel like every facet of who you are as an individual, I think all comes down to the bottom line, creativity, which I think is an amazing thing. Um, when you are creating these interesting, amazing things, what is going through your mind very quickly, because we run out of time so quickly in our
Are
show.
we?
Yeah, so soon actually. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. When you're creating this stuff, what is going on in your mind? Are you thinking I need to stay one step ahead and thinking of something in the future? Are you focusing on the task at hand, or is there always something percolating in your head?
I'm vomiting, Miguel. I'm vomiting. I'm like, I have to write
All the time, right?
Yeah, like I feel like it's in me, and I trust the voice inside me. So my Indian name, I'm Laguna Pueblo, is
Mm-hmm.
with open heart. That's my name.
Nice. Yeah,
And
beautiful.
oh, thank you. I like it. I like it. It should be grazing buffalo, but with open heart. Um, and I kind of like approach life like that. I'm like, just be open and
Uh-huh.
it'll come to you. And when it does come, I feel like I'm throwing up. I feel like I have to write this, I have to do this, I have to do it now. So I guess I'm pretty focused on the now, and then I worry about how later. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely, 100%. What's one thing that you can tell our audience to propel them into this kind of creative way of thinking? What piece of advice can you give them?
Listen to your heart. It will never lead you astray. But really listen. You know, you know when you close the door and you're not anybody's dad or husband or friend or me, wife, whatever, when you're you, listen to that you.
And I think once again, it won't ever lead them in a wrong way. I wanted to say thank you very much for being part of the show, because time goes so quickly when you're just having a beautiful, wonderful conversation with amazing people. Did you enjoy yourself?
I love it. Let's do this again.
Yes, let's try to do it again.
Yes.
Let's please do it one more time. So how can people get a hold of you? Maybe if they want to set up some kind of a meeting, or if they want to hire you, or a Mobu.
Yeah, that's probably a really important thing.
Yes.
You could, I guess, call me.
Yeah, sure. And you can give your number out if you'd like, or we can just tag it down at the bottom later.
Yeah, we could tag it, and I can also tag my email,
Okay.
and I'm also on Facebook. Monica with a K, sign language. Mojica with a J. So
Awesome.
yeah.
That's beautiful. So I wanted to thank you very much for being our guest today, because we always have amazing people. So hopefully you had a great time. And I wanted to thank our viewing audience for giving us another opportunity to come into your homes. As you guys can see, we're doing everything remotely here at our homes because of COVID. But again, we're always trying to bring you creative people, creative thinkers to our wonderful show. So thank you for joining us once again. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Miguel. You rock.